So today we are going to be prepping some of the fossils we got when we were in Wyoming on our way to visit Clint. And before we get started, I just kind of wanted to walk you through a couple of the tools that we're going to be using. The first of which is this Dremel. Now, it might seem heavy duty to be using on something like this, and that's true. This is only going to be used to remove big chunks where you know there's not going to be fossils in it. So for example, on this one, you can see the fossil itself and you can see the area around it. Now it's hard to use some of the finer things, finer tools when we are trying to work around the fossil. And really, we don't really care about much of this rock, and we can make that look pretty later. But what we really want to make sure we're getting really finely detailed is that fossil itself. On this one, obviously I haven't done any of that cleaning up yet, but just to get the rough shape of the fossil and chip away some of that original stone before we figured out where the actual head of that fossil is. Originally, all of this was covered, everything here up, as you can kind of tell from where this rock and this one go. And I had to get under that, but I didn't want to risk damaging the fossil by just, getting pieces off of it without looking at it. A couple more things is you do not want to try to remove material if you have a mold. And I'm going to use the terms cast and mold. And what I mean by that is if you've ever done like epoxy, you have sort of a shape, that's the mold. And then a cast is what you pour in and forms a solid. In this case, I'm going to be using cast as the actual structure of the bone itself, whereas the actual term refers to a something that you put over the natural fossil in order to make the mold for further, synthetic representations of the fossil. But here, I'm going to show you a few of what I mean, if my camera will focus. Okay, well, for the most part, you can see what I'm talking about. So right up here, you can see the bone actually comes out towards you, out that direction. Sorry for my ugly fingers. But here you can see it actually indents. And what that means is right there, we actually lost some of those vertebrae when we had the fossil earlier. Now this could have happened when we were first splitting the rock, or it could have been a mishap when we were actually preparing it and we just didn't notice. If you see it indented, if the ribs or if the spine and the ribs are indented, or the skull and tail, do not try to, clean that, because all you're going to be doing is removing that indent. If you have a fossil that's external, that's pushing outward, that means there could be stuff over top of it. There could be sediment and material that is blocking your view of the fossil. But if it's indented, there's nothing else you're going to be finding unless, some can be indented and outdented. Like in this fossil, we see there's both cases. So I could prepare up here, but I wouldn't want to clean any more of these vertebrae because there's no vertebrae there to clean. But it might look like there is what I'm trying to say. You should be able to see that a lot clearer in person if you're working on it. I like to use this bobby pin, just this section, to remove some of the sediment without, like, this is a little bit closer than the Dremel, but where you still have enough control to not finish what you started. Whereas with a Dremel, you're just going to go straight through the fossil and you won't even know that you hit it. Here, you can remove some sediment if you think you're still further away from the fossil. If you risk getting close to the fossil at all, don't even try this. Try the finer things until you have a better idea of where the fossil is. And what I use for that, if I can pick it up, is just this plain old sewing needle. Now that might seem, overkill for how fine you want to get it. I really like fossils, so I'm gonna, err on the side of being extra careful. A couple of other things, if you have sensitive, lungs, eyes, those sort of things, wear eye protection, wear masks and those sort of things. If you're just working with the needle or the bobby pin, it's probably not super necessary, but when you're using the Dremel, it's going to be flinging some of those things, so don't risk that. The other thing is you're going to want to wait for these fossils to dry after you've taken them out of the quarry, primarily because if there's any liquid stuck in between the layers, then it can pull the fossil pieces with it, which might have been why we're missing some of the vertebrae on that piece. Without further ado, I'm going to change the camera up and show you an example of where I'm using each of the different pieces. I might overlay it, but we're just going to jump straight into it and show you sort of the process, and then at the end we'll show you all the fossils we got, and some of which we may not even know we have yet because we're going to be unearthing them today. The other thing is, if you have a full fossil, like let's say you have a fossil like this that you can see everything, I personally wouldn't risk trying to clean that up. This specific piece, I got some of the pieces off. A lot of it have sediment over the top of it. But if you see the entire fish, it's not a huge deal. One of the pieces that we have, when we took it out of the quarry, let me see. All we could see was this piece here, right? As you can see, the fossil split, but I know, seeing that there's a whole fish under here. And when this broke on the car ride, you can actually see vertebrae all through there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare both sides, and then I'll be able to glue this back together later. I have a couple examples of things we might have to glue later on. But basically, when you're in the quarry, you're looking for anything visible. And once you know you have a fossil, you can bring it home and prepare it later. You might even not know what you have until you get home. For all I know, that could be more than a fish. That could be a bat or a turtle. I don't know. But I don't know until I get here. Whereas if I tried to check that in the quarry, I may have had a bat, super rare, but I won't have a bat afterwards because I broke it trying to clean it up in the quarry because of that moisture. A couple other things to mention is, if you have a fossil that is a already decomposed fish, so you can tell there's fossils there, but it's basically a pile of bones, I wouldn't really bother cleaning up that too much, because number one, it's not going to look that much different, and number two is you don't know where those bones are. You don't know where they overlap each other, so you're going to risk getting rid of a lot of the bones you don't want to get rid of. I think that's all I want to talk about, but we're going to jump straight. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that look at the amateur side of cleaning and collecting fossils, and see a little bit of the fun that we got to have this summer. So if you like what you saw, check out some of our other videos. We focus on education about life sciences, plants, animals, and all of the ongoings of our business. So stay tuned for more. We hope to see you next time.